Hi, folks. Welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I'm with Joby Weeks, 𝗬𝗶𝗱𝗀𝗍.
Hey, what's up,
As he
man?
like to be called. Man, this is an interesting story. I promise you all are going to be entertained the whole way through. In fact, it just sounds too crazy for me. It sounds too insane and just too hard to believe. Fantastical at that. So, Joby, man, thank you for joining me. I've been waiting for this interview.
Well, thanks for having me. This is the first one I've done since deciding to fire everybody and sue the government for 222,222 bitcoins or $22.2 billion,
That's insane.
whichever is worth more at the time.
All right, so before we started recording, you put a whole different spin on this that I wasn't expecting. The whole Epstein Island thing, that you actually raided his island, or you went to his island to see if the guy was alive or not. But before we get into that, I just want to give a rundown to my audience what's going on here. So it says here, what I have here, and you can correct me. Joby Weeks, a well-known figure in the alternative finance and cryptocurrency world, has been entangled in a protracted legal battle with the U.S. government and its associated agencies. What began as a federal prosecution related to Weeks' involvement in BitClub Network, an alleged multi-million-dollar cryptocurrency fraud, has now evolved into a highly unconventional counterattack by Weeks himself. Am I right on that?
You're correct, yes.
Okay. At the heart of this evolving legal drama is Weeks' recent filing for a default judgment against a sprawling list of government officials, prosecutors, judges, and law enforcement officers, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I'm suing the SEC, the IRS, the FBI, 6 judges, 9 prosecutors, a bunch of agents. They brought the claim against me 5 years ago, December 10th, 2019. I was at a Tony Robbins conference in West Palm Beach. Date with Destiny, they called it.
I've done those.
Yeah, it's a great one, but they surrounded me and kidnapped me.
They got you there at the Tony Robbins.
They did.
No,
I got my date with Destiny. That's for sure. Oh man, it's a long story. I should probably start from the beginning though.
Start from the beginning. So first of all, I want to say, first of all, I'm rooting you on. I've been learning about this for the last week, and I'm like, wow, this is an incredible story, man. This guy's got balls of steel. First of all, so I may be asking you some questions that you might find elementary or annoying, but it's so my audience and myself can get a better understanding of what's going on here. Basically, I'm kind of new to the cryptocurrency world, and a lot of my audience is too. So I'm going to be trying to figure this out as I go along. But let's first start that, if you do win this will be a huge win for not only America, but for like humanity, in
Absolutely.
my opinion, So let's start off right now. You're on house arrest, correct?
I've been on house arrest for 5 years. I got an ankle bracelet on. I'm stuck at my parents' pad. I haven't lived here since high school. So nice. I get to come back and
the meatloaf.
Exactly. And the house hasn't changed either. It's still full of stuff from
So how long have you been on house arrest?
5 years.
So you're waiting on sentencing?
Here, let me start.
Okay, start it. Let's go for it.
So all right. So I was born at a very young age here in Colorado, and for my mom and dad, Nat and Silence Weeks, they're great. My dad's a history and economics teacher, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom / entrepreneur. She did lots of little side businesses trying to support my dad, who, as a Christian school teacher, never made more than $20,000 a year. So we grew up at the Goodwill and the Salvation Army and doing yard sales and stuff like that. But she started with a company, Amway, and they had this tape of the week subscription you'd get on, and you get these tapes. So at a very young age, I was brainwashed into becoming an entrepreneur, listening to Jim Rohn and Brian Tracy and Tom Hopkins and Big Al. And
they tried to get me an Amway when I was in high school.
Tony Robbins. Yeah. So I'm like constantly, so I became psychologically unemployable. And I started reading books. I read a book called Atlas Shrugged and learned about a guy named John Galt. And that forever changed my political outlook, becoming a libertarian objectivist. Let's see here. I decided to join my mom in her business venture with my uncle in a company called Manatech, which is a nutraceutical research and development company. They patented basically a powder that you eat. It's food but it's everything you need to replicate the human body, because every 7 years you get a new body. So it's got all the vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, glyconutrients, phytosterols, digestive enzymes, probiotics, essential oils, fatty acids, all that stuff. Everything you need to build a new body. And I was learning about the pharmaceutical cartel and how, most of these drugs just go to manage symptoms and they don't really go after the root cause of why people are sick in the first place. And I started sharing the tech with people. The company started to grow. Set up offices in Tokyo, Sydney, London, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, South Africa. Ended up going public. The company went from zero to a dollar a share to $44 a share on the NASDAQ. Sold about $4 billion worth of products. So that's what I was doing. Is
entrepreneur all the way.
Entrepreneur, yeah. We got Dr. Ben Carson better from cancer. He decided to be on our speakers bureau and go around lecturing about how this tech works. It's the science behind it. Won 4 Nobel Prizes in medicine. Is written up in Science Magazine, Scientific American, Harper's Biochemistry. The MIT said it's one of the top 10 technologies that will change the world. But we got attacked by the pharmaceutical cartel, right?
Of course.
There was something called the 𝗓𝗃 Act, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, that was passed that Congress unanimously passed it, which it got more votes, than the Vietnam War. Very few things get unanimously approved, but they never created like an FDA for the nutraceutical, so food and drug. Anyways, long and the short, they came after Manitech. You can Google it and read the stories. Manitech ended up settling, but I learned that there's a hidden force. There's a lot of people that are actually making a killing, literally profiteering off the suffering of humanity. But when I was young, I started when I was 14 years old selling these products, and by 19 I was a millionaire. And so
by 19 you were a millionaire?
I was, yes.
Wow. Okay.
I got on TD Jakes' TV show and was lecturing all over the world. I got on the Speakers Bureau too. I went to 100 countries, bouncing around the world, and I started investing in other businesses. One of the businesses was electronic cigarettes. We put together a company called 𝗀𝗃𝗁, if you remember those. The electronic
I think so,
cigarettes. But nobody knew what they were. We were going to call them 𝗵𝗶𝗱𝗏, or I don't know. I had a website. It's not smoke.com. It's just vapor.com, because everyone's like, you can't smoke.
Was it one of the first one was Juul, though, wasn't it?
We were there before Juul, but I know the Juul guys. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, now they're the vapes and stuff. But then, of course, the tobacco cartel comes in, and they're having to pay a tobacco tax to the government. But our nicotine wasn't made out of tobacco, so we could undercut the cigarettes.
Wow.
I wasn't trying to say it was healthy. It was just healthier than smoking, right? And anyways, so I found out that there's a tobacco cartel and a pharmaceutical cartel. And so I'm going around, investing in other stuff. I learned about the oil cartel and how they're blocking all this energy tech and stuff like that. I got politically active because I read Ron Paul's books. He had the Free Competition and Currency Act, and he had the Health Freedom Protection Act. And being in the wellness space, being able to have natural, non-toxic pharmaceutical grade products without side effects, compete with the pharmaceutical drugs. We were interested in that. So I knew about Ron Paul before anybody else did. And long and the short, he decided to run for president. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. So I had to register as a Republican because I was a libertarian. And everybody in my neighborhood, they were all Democrats. So I had to become a registrar and knock doors and get all my Democrat neighbors to quit being Democrats and sign up to be Republicans so they could vote for me. So I could be the committee chairperson. And then I got elected to become a district captain. And then I went to the Congressional Assembly and got elected there, delegate to the state convention, all the way up to the national convention. I became a national delegate to try to get Ron Paul elected. And that I went to St. Paul in Minnesota. He had a big rally for the Republic, which was great. And at the time, we put together something called the Liberty Dollar. I read the Liberty Dollar Solution to the Federal Reserve. And I knew a little bit about the Fed, but I didn't really know much. So I started asking my father about our history because my family's from the East Coast, but we were living in Colorado because my dad's a ski bum. He was ski patrol, and that's how he met my mom at Steamboat. So I grew up snowboarding and skiing. Well, comes to find out, he tells me the history of my family. My great-grandfather was Secretary of War under Presidents Harding and Coolidge. He was on the Monetary Commission that passed the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. He started Bank of Boston, his company Hornblower and Weeks. His name was John Wingate Weeks. He funded Lockheed and Boeing. They put together something called the Council on Foreign Relations, or the CFR. and they just wanted to take over the planet, I guess, the military-industrial complex.
Yeah,
they had to do it with this banking cartel, right? The Federal Reserve Bank. And I read Ed Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And my great grandfather, his son was Sinclair Weeks. He was Secretary of Commerce under Eisenhower. So I learned all this stuff about my family that I didn't really know. But if you go into Harvard across the Charles River, there's the Sinclair Weeks Bridge. They were officers in the American Revolution. They're part of this thing called the Society of the Cincinnati. So my family, they came over on the Mayflower. In fact, it was interesting to learn that there were 10 presidents of the United States before George Washington. From 1776 to 1787, under the Articles of Confederation, there were 10 presidents, one of them being Arthur Sinclair. There was Thomas Mifflin, Thomas McKean, Elias Bonet, John Hanson. These guys were all the forgotten founders, because we only hear about George Washington, who was
George Washington and then forward.
He was the 11th president of the United States.
Wow.
First under the Constitution, but the 11th president of the United States. So I guess I had a unique upbringing because my dad was a history teacher, and he taught me a lot of history that the public schools don't teach us, you know?
The true history.
The true history, yeah. So long and the short, I become an entrepreneur. But Ron Paul didn't get elected, unfortunately. But he told me, we became friends, and he told me, you know, when we were minting these coins, we call them the Liberty dollars. Everything I do in my life revolves around liberty. And so, you know, we had about 20,000 merchants that were accepting our currency. You know, lawful money in the Constitution is gold and silver. It's not this fiat money that the Fed keeps printing trillions and trillions of. And so we're minting these coins for all these different organizations. And long and the short, we made one for Ron Paul. We put his face on a coin, and we sold 60,000 of these coins month one. And I was like, wow, this is great. Everybody loves Ron Paul. They're buying these coins. They're showing them off to their friends. And so we pulled together about $5 million. And I had taken the money that I had made and spent it trying to get Ron Paul elected. So we did the Ron Paul blimp, and we did the Ron Paul limo. I don't know if you saw this, but
you were all in on Ron Paul. You were trying to.
I rented the largest.
You were campaigning limo for him every day. Wow.
I wrapped it in an American flag, put freedom, liberty, sound money, private property, bring our troops home, you know, all this stuff. I took it to 30 states and all the debates and stuff. It was great. But back when the meetup groups were popular, we would go state to state and, you know, meet all the Ron Paul people. And so if we put all this money together, I think it was like 4 tons of gold, silver, platinum, and copper coins. And the feds came in with machine guns and stole all the money. Nobody was arrested. There was no cease and desist letters, nothing like that. But then I learned more about the banking cartel, and they just stole every money. We had to do a class action lawsuit against the FBI, and took 7 years to get our property back. It's like, what you put you got Martin Luther King coins. They don't raid you. You got,
but Ron Paul, they raid you.
I read his book. Ron Paul's case, they come in with machine guns, man.
I think I read his book, "And the Fed."
Yeah, and the Fed.
And the Fed,
Foreign policy of freedom and pillars of prosperity. You know.
So this guy's he really is a true outsider, Ron Paul, man. They don't want. I mean, anybody associated with him, they come in and raid you, and you were trying to get this guy elected.
That's why I wasn't really surprised about my current situation, because for like 20 years I've been kind of battling the status quo, if you will.
Right.
So that happened. I go back home, and I'm thinking, you know, I watched this movie called End Time with Justin Timberlake. And
they collect
time is money. Yeah. The currency is time. Everybody stays. It's a great movie.
I love that movie. Coming.
So we had that idea, and we're like, time is money. So we decided to create a currency backed by time. So we did a 2-hour note, a 1-hour note, a half-hour note. And people were trading, you know. But the problem with that currency, which we had hundreds of merchants, we did mountain hours.
Hold on, you got this whole idea off a movie you saw, and you're like, okay, no, we're going to make a time currency.
Exactly.
I love the way you think, man.
Well, it was like we lived in Breckenridge at the time, and so it was like
Breckenridge.
During ski season, there's like hundreds of thousands of people that come snowboarding and stuff. But then the slopes close. They call it mud season, and like the whole town has to shut down because the tourists stop. And you know, it's only like 3,000 or 4,000 people that actually live in Breckenridge.
I love Breckenridge. I love it.
Yeah. So I was like, let's create a local currency that stays within the economy, so we don't have to be so dependent on tourists and stuff. The idea was go local, buy local, all that kind of stuff. So that was working great, and I then figured out. Well, what Ron said to change some stuff while growing local, work at a local level. So one of the things that I decided I was going to do was legalize cannabis. So I had my friend Scott McAllister draft up a ballot initiative where if you got politicians that won't introduce legislation because they're afraid of the blowback or whatever, we, the people, can actually introduce our own legislation straight to the voters and usurp or circumvent these politicians that are only really concerned about getting reelected over and over again, right? So I stood in front of the bank and the grocery store and the post office, and I collected all these signatures to legalize cannabis. I got enough signatures to put it up onto the ballot, and we got 76% of the town to vote yes to legalize cannabis. And Breckenridge became the first town in all of America to legalize cannabis for people over the age of 21. So
Get
then we
out
took
of here.
60,
you did that?
Counties.
You
I did that.
spearheaded that?
I did. And then
I see a movie coming for you, bro. I'm serious.
Well,
you make a movie about your life.
Because we got all 64 counties in the state, and the state of Colorado was the first one to legalize cannabis, and so it went big. And so, yeah, we did. We filmed all this kind of stuff, and I'm working on putting together, a docu-series and a feature film and a scripted miniseries, because I had a film crew follow me for like 3 years doing all this stuff. Went to 175 countries. Filming, because right as the time we legalized cannabis and we did this Mountain Hours project and the time back currency, Bitcoin came out, and there was this website called the Silk Road, and nobody knew what Bitcoin was, and so I got my first 250 Bitcoins for $200. So they were like 85 cents each. Wow. And I was like, what is this? But I understood how BitTorrents worked, where you could download movies and stuff, because Napster had just been shut down, and then the Pirate Bay came out, and you pull from nodes, a piece of the movie here, a piece of the movie there, a piece of the movie there, and then you got the whole movie. I was like, oh, so Bitcoin is the currency that runs on the BitTorrent network. Okay, I understand. So I got it right away, this distributed ledger. And so I was like, this is great. So I had all this Bitcoin on the Silk Road, but then of course the feds come and steal all the money. And then they auction it off to Tim Draper, all the Bitcoin. But I still believed in it. And so I got some more Bitcoin. And there's this hack called the Mt. Gox hack, and all my Bitcoin gets stolen again. And then this project called Ethereum comes out.
So they've come in twice and taken your Bitcoin?
Oh, like a dozen times. Why?
So you started.
They keep robbing me, man.
Wow. Okay.
So then what happens is this currency called Ethereum comes out. Well, I'm like, this is interesting. So I get Ethereum, and then there was this thing called the DAO hack, where some hackers stole $64 million of Ethereum, and they had to fork the chain to reverse the transaction. So you got Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. The old school crypto people will remember that hack. So I lost all my crypto again. And then I got hacked. They did a SIM swap where they stole my phone number and social engineered me and stole like $50 million worth of Bitcoin from me.
Wow.
Again, if you Google Joby Weeks, New York Times, you can read that story, where they actually will hack the telcos and steal your phone number. And then because you can't set up a Gmail account or a Facebook account or whatever without a phone number, because if you forget your password, they'll send you a code, right?
Right. So they hack that.
So yeah, when they steal your phone number, then they click forgot password. The hacker gets the code, not you. They steal all your shit. So I'm like, they didn't have Google Authenticator back then, where the code changes every 30 seconds or whatever.
Right.
So, it's the Wild West. Nobody knows what crypto is. And I'm like, well, I already had a mint because I was already minting gold and silver coins. So we decided to create the Bitcoin logo so people would know what Bitcoin is and put it out. And the thing went viral. The whole world uses this logo now. And I decided to put on the back of the coin, laser etch the private key, because everybody was told, write down your 12-word seed on a piece of paper. But I'm thinking that's not fireproof and that's not flood-proof. Why don't we just take a physical copper or silver or gold coin, laser etch the private key, and now you got a flood-proof and fireproof way of preserving your wallet. And long and the short, oh, thank you. She just handed me one. So this is actually what a cold storage coin looks like.
Wow.
I was trying to basically bring the hard money guys, the gold silver guys, with the crypto internet money guys and kind of push them together.
Direct them.
And then, so this is fireproof and floodproof. And so that's called cold storage coins. It started going viral. We basically designed the logos for most all the cryptocurrencies.
That's insanity, dude.
Because nobody knew what it was back then.
Wow.
And so fast forward again, I hear about mining, where you can buy a machine that prints money. Although Bitcoin technically isn't money, but I would always say, why buy the golden egg when you can buy the goose that lays golden eggs, which is like mining crypto. Yeah. And so I met these guys down at Necker Island. I was with Richard Branson. He introduced me to them. They were called the Bitfury Group, and they make chips, mining hardware chips that They call them ASIC chips. So when it first started out, it was the CPUs on your laptop, and then they created GPUs, which are like the graphics card, like NVIDIA and stuff. But then the next level up is called ASIC chips, which like you program it just for the 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗃 algorithm, and it goes super fast. It's like 100 laptops in one, you know. And a friend of mine approached me saying, "Hey, there's this new network marketing company called 𝗵𝗶𝗀, and they might be interested in buying computer equipment, this hardware from you, from Bitfury." I was basically standing in the middle and brokering sales. I was a vendor. So I met the guys and I was like, yeah, they were buying from a Chinese outfit called Bitmain. And I was like, they're charging like $300,000 a petahash. I can get you the same hashing power for 150 grand. I can get it to you guys for half price. And they're like, really? Because basically Bitmain was like the monopoly.
Started broking a deal right off the get-go, right out of the gate.
Right out of the get-go. Because at the time they started mining, it was like $200 a Bitcoin. And I ended up brokering tens of millions of dollars worth of mining hardware to this club, 𝗵𝗀𝗀. And I looked at it, and you know, these boxes are like $1 million. Not a lot of people have $1 million, but what I liked about 𝗵𝗀𝗀 is they'd buy a box full of these miners. They call them block boxes for the blockchain. That's what secures the blockchain and creates this immutable distributed ledger, if you will. So not a lot of people could spend $1 million. And my mom and dad, they wanted to get in, but they don't have $1 million to buy a block box. So what 𝗵𝗀𝗀 was doing was they were selling individual units that people could take delivery of and mine crypto in their own home, or they could, just store it.
Mine the crypto in their own home.
You could buy a computer and either have 𝗵𝗀𝗀 host it for you, just like Amazon, AWS, or anything, and they host in their data centers, or you could actually take physical delivery of the computer and mine crypto at home. Most people, though, didn't have a very good price on power. They're paying like 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And, 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀 was paying like 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Wow. Okay. So it's a lot. You make a lot more Bitcoin because the power bill is usually like 1/3 of the. They say that if you're mining away, the first 10 days of the Bitcoin you mine goes to pay the power bill, and the next 20 days is profit. Right. So that's kind of how it went. And
this is how you got affiliated with this company that they said is a Ponzi scheme.
They said it was a Ponzi scheme, but I knew it wasn't a Ponzi scheme because I was the guy selling them equipment. I set up a bunch of these data centers for these guys. And I'm like, I went to Iceland. They took videos. Here's the invoices. Here's the data center. Here's the pool. Here's how much Bitcoin they mined. So back then, the Goldman Sachs was not into Bitcoin. BlackRock was not into Bitcoin. It was like the banking cartel. You know how truth comes in 3 phases. It's not believed, it's laughed at, then it's violently opposed, and then it's self-evident, right? Now we got a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and Trump loves it, and blah, blah, blah. BlackRock's in. Well, this was back at the time when it was being violently opposed. They're like, who's Satoshi? We can't find Satoshi. So the next tier down on the Bitcoin thing are the miners. And who were the biggest miners? Well, 𝗵𝗀𝗀 became literally the biggest Bitcoin mining operation in the world. They controlled 11%.
Are they still around? I mean, they're still around, 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀?
Oh, the government came in with machine guns and stole all the equipment and everybody's money. Here's what happened to. So they, because they went after the miners, and the biggest miner, 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀, and I was one of, I was already speaking at all these conferences around the world, and so I was telling people, look, if you can't afford $1 million to buy a block box yourself, join 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀. You can get little individual computers, and little guys could get in for $500 and start mining Bitcoin. So I'm like, so my mom and dad loved it, my uncles, my aunts, everybody, my brother, all my friends were like super stoked. Everybody, 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗀 ended up mining 92,000 Bitcoin at $100 grand a Bitcoin. That's $9 billion.
That's insanity.
Plus $500,000 Ethereum, because they started mining it. That's another $1 billion there in just Ethereum.
And people are mining it themselves.
They're mining it, and yeah. So the government comes in. They're like, they just kidnap us. They steal all the equipment and everybody's money. We had 1 million members in over 100 countries. 3 tell 3 tell 3 tell 3. All of a sudden, you got 1 million people. I mean, it was like
you were teaching people how to create their own money, basically.
Yeah, well, Bitcoin technically isn't money, but yes,
well, I mean, but
not touch the United States financial system in any way. We didn't accept dollars. It was Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out. They blocked the IP addresses from U.S. From the United States because they didn't want to have any kind of problems with the SEC or the IRS or anything. Right. The United States is controlled by the banking cartel, right?
Correct.
They got global reach. So long and the short, they thought they were protected because it wasn't a company. It was a private membership association. They didn't allow U.S. citizens to join. They only did Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out, yada, yada, yada. They thought they were protected, but the government just came in and kidnapped us. Stole
When you
everybody's.
say kidnapped you, explain that further a little bit.
Oh, at Tony Robbins. So they take me.
So
They don't take me to
this
jail.
operation is going smoothly. Everything's running
Yeah,
fine.
I was kind of
You go to
getting
a Tony.
little.
You didn't know they were onto you. You didn't know they were looking at you at all.
I did.
Okay.
So what happened was this. So there's a crypto island called St. Kitts down at, like, you've heard about Roger Ver and some of these guys. So they're my neighbors in St. Kitts, and they have a deal whereas if you buy a house, you can get a second passport. And I was involved in creating Liberland. If you remember Liberland, I was climbing the 7 summits and I was up on top of Mount McKinley in Alaska, and I saved this Serbian climber's life. And we summited together. Long and the short, he became my friend. He invites me to his wedding in Belgrade, Serbia, and I became his best man, his 𝗀𝗃 they call it. And he's got all of his army's buddies, and they're trying to drink me under the table with this stuff called rakia. And anyways, we have a good time out in Serbia. And I learned about the history of Yugoslavia and how it broke up after the Cold War. And Serbia went this way, and Croatia, and Macedonia, and Kosovo, and Albania, and Montenegro. All these countries split out. And there's this island, there's this river called the Danube River that goes through the former Yugoslavia. And there was this island there that used to be Yugoslavia, but there's no more Yugoslavia. And Serbia went that way, and Croatia went that way, and there's this island. And so we decided to claim this island, to call it Liberland, the land of liberty, put up a website, 1 million people joined to become citizens. We started making passports and all this kind of stuff. So I was always kind of interested in micronations.
This is wild.
Kind of like as a joke. But anyways, it started getting.
This is wild. I've never
You can travel now on Liberland passports, which is funny. I mean, there's I've literally traveled around. They stamp my passport, and I go bouncing around countries with a passport I just invented. So my friend Gov't is the president of Liberland. In fact, we just got Justin's son, who started Tron. He's now the prime minister of Liberland. And if you Google Joby Weeks Atlantis, I actually became a prime minister of another country that was off of the coast of Madeira, and we were the first country in the world to officially adopt Bitcoin as our local currency.
Oh my gosh!
And so we just do funny things like that. But I'm down in St. Kitts with these other crypto guys, and this is citizenship by investment program. And what I was kind of frustrated because Americans are blocked from all the crypto opportunities back then. It's we'll deal with anybody in the world except for Iranians, North Koreans, and Americans. Everybody else can participate, but Americans can't. And I was like, that's messed up. We're supposed to be the land of the free. And they're like, well, sorry, you're an American. We can't let you join our opportunity. And so that's one of the reasons why I went down to St. Kitts, because I wanted to get that passport. Because, for instance, Americans have to get visas for Russia, but St. Kittitians don't have to get visas for Russia, right? I mean, when I was going up to the North Pole, I took this Russian icebreaker to the North Pole, and there was a whole ordeal that I'm not going to go into, but the St. Kitts passport saved my wife at the time. And whereas the American one, she wasn't even going to be let into Russia.
Wow.
To do that because, but she just whipped out the St. Kitts passport, and voila. She was able to go into the country. So we just wanted to have a plan B and a plan C and a plan D and participate in opportunities that Americans were being blocked from participating in. And so long and the short, I go down there and they give my wife the passport, but they don't give me the passport. So I'm like, well, why can't I have a passport? They're like, well, there's an investigation going on you. An investigation. So I'm sitting there thinking, who could possibly be mad at me? Let's see, the oil cartel, the banking cartel, the pharmaceutical cartel, the tobacco cartel.
Which one? Pick your choice.
Yeah, so I wasn't exactly certain who was mad at me. And at the time, I had looked up when I got hacked, stole my phone number. And so the FBI wouldn't do anything about catching these hackers. So I know these guys that moonlight jobs on the side, and they'll go catch animal poachers for Interpol or whatever. And I was like, hey, let's go catch hackers, because they were giving Bitcoin a bad rap, when they lock up a hospital with ransomware, stuff like that. So I was like, I put together this team to go catch hackers. So we found the hacker in the Philippines, found out the casino 𝗙𝗓𝗓 is laundering the money through, where his family lives. He got a new set of tits and everything. It's so fun. It was like a stock hacker. It was so
funny. My god!
But it sucked because
the story gets better and better, dude. I'm enjoying this.
So I go to the FBI with this silver, the dossier of this hacker on the silver platter, and I'm like, Can you please go catch this hacker? This is the whole reason why you exist, is to go like catch bad guys. And I put together a team. I'll help you guys if you guys can't figure out Bitcoin. This was back then. The big FBI didn't even know what Bitcoin was. So long and the short, they won't catch my hacker. But I'm sitting there. So I find out there's this investigation going on me because I can't get my St. Kitts passport. So I call guys, is this true? And they call me back 2 days later. Yeah, there's an investigation going on you. I'm like, by who? And they're like, the Treasury. I'm like, well, set up a meeting. So I fly to DC and I have this meeting with the Treasury Department.
You just requested to set up a meeting like that. With
I wanted to know why. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wanted to know why they were messing with me because I wanted my St. Kitts passport. So I go down to DC and I have this discussion with these agents and I'm like, what's this all about? And they're like, crypto. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, here's the invoices. Here's the pictures of the data centers. Here's the wallet address. They're mining a bunch of crypto. They were asking a bunch of questions about Bitcoin. So I get done. I'm like, perfect. The investigation should be over. Fly back down to St. Kitts. And they're like, this is dumb of me. But long and the short, I wish I could redo, you know how hindsight's 2020. I go back down to St. Kitts and I'm like, can I get my passport? They're like, no, they're still investigating you. I'm like, what? So I called up the FBI agents. Why are you guys still investigating me? And they were like, well, we have some more questions. And I'm like, fine. Well, I'm going to be at the Tony Robbins thing. I had extra tickets to Tony Robbins.
You told them this?
I actually invited these guys to Tony Robbins with me. And that's when they kidnapped me. So dumb of me. I should not have invited.
So I guess Tony Robbins saw all this go down.
I don't know. There was 5,000 people there. You know how it goes. But man, dude, I was just trying to like be open and honest and like.
So you're at the Tony Robbins seminar, and the guy barges in and takes you. Like, did they make a big spectacle out of it?
I got a little PTSD on it. But listen, they wouldn't even take me to jail. They took me to this black site where I'm like an unmarked building. And I'm like, wait, are you guys really cops? Because I wasn't certain. Maybe they were just pretending to be cops. And this is just a heist, and they just wanted to steal my crypto. Because I'm like, I think I get to see a lawyer, and I think I get to see a judge, right? And so they're like, give us your private keys, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, if you guys are really cops and I'm really arrested, I need Bitcoin to pay for bail, and I need to go hire some lawyers, right? So they're like, well, you have to give us your Bitcoin. And I'm like, no. So I refused. They get all mad. And so for the next 11 months, they bounced me around the country from jail to jail to jail to jail. And
diesel therapy.
Yeah, diesel therapy, right? But it was interesting because they were flying me around in private jets. So I was like,
wow. So they're bouncing around. They didn't really know what to do with this situation, did they?
They were well, they just wanted. I look at it as just like a heist. Human trafficking, kidnapping.
They wanted your Bitcoin.
They wanted my Bitcoin.
What?
Yeah. So I get to New Jersey. I mean, it took 6 days for me to even see a judge. There's so many things. Like here's how this is supposed to go. You get indicted, you get arrested, you get bail, you get a trial, and if you're convicted after trial, then you go to jail. That's called due process. These guys just break the law. They don't follow the Constitution or anything. They just kidnap you and throw you straight in jail. And this is why the government gets a 97% success rate in convictions. It's because they just throw you in jail. They make you sit in jail for a couple of years, and then they come and say, yeah, no due process. I mean, totally illegal. You're supposed to get a trial before you get thrown in jail. But they're like, oh, they made all these loopholes for themselves, right? You have a right to bear arms unless you're a felon. That's not what it says. It says you have a right to bear arms shall not be infringed. You have a right to bail, they say, unless you're a flight risk. Or you have a right to a trial unless it's a complex case. And then they do an ends of justice where they just
quotations and all this, right?
It's all a bunch of it's called lawfare, and Trump experienced this, which is kind of nice that he understands what I went through because. Dude, this happened way before January. I'm still on an ankle bracelet. We're still waiting for a trial.
How long have you had the ankle bracelet on?
For like almost going on 6 years, bro.
Oh, dude.
Oh, that's why I got so tired of this because I had these stupid lawyers who were like just thieves. I've already.
And you've been living at your mom's house for 6 years,
dude. It gets crazy. There's some things I want to tell you, but it might hurt my. Okay. I'm in the middle of this case still, so I'll tell you. We'll do a follow-up interview, and I'll tell you some other stories that are absolutely hilarious. But I've been filming this thing. I don't know if you saw the sizzle reel at @jobyweeks.com.
I haven't seen that. But
go to jobyweeks.com. There's like a 2-minute sizzle reel or trailer for the movie we're producing, and you'll find it funny. And all the court cases and all that stuff that the paperwork I've been filing to the docket. So I had this guy David Boies, who's a top hotshot lawyer. and Hunter Biden.
This is like Wolf of Wall Street, Big Lebowski, all of
Forrest Gump,
all of it.
Indiana Jones.
This is all in one. This is seriously, this is a producer's dream right here, man.
Well, a week before this all happened, I had my daughter Liberty. She went to all 50 states and 45 countries by her first birthday. She's the most traveled baby in the world. Ron Paul.
How did you accomplish that? I mean,
I don't know. I had my own airplane. I bought an airplane from the Treasury. It was El Chapo's airplane.
El Chapo, huh? Wow.
El Chapo's airplane. The Treasury was auctioning off. I'm like, I have to buy that because it's a good story. So, anyways, I bounced it around. I bounced, Liberty around, and I had Luke Rudkowski with me from We Are Change. I started We Are Change Colorado, and he started We Are Change. There's like 80 chapters, and we were doing 9/11 stuff. And Jeff Berwick, the dollar vigilante.
I've had him on my show.
He's great, a good buddy of mine.
Berwick, Acapulco, right?
Yeah. I got a house in Acapulco. Got hit by a hurricane, and then it got hit by an earthquake.
Wow.
Like, I'm not going to buy houses anymore. I'm just going to.
So hold on. But you drew. Let's just because you talked about the
Epstein Island. That's the Epstein
Island.
Let's.
That's what really drew more attention to you was. Tell me how this materialized. How the hell did you get to Epstein Island? This was after Jeffrey Epstein was.
Yeah, they said he was dead, but everybody saw the guy they pulled out of the jail was not Jeffrey Epstein.
I agree with you.
And then there's the pictures showed up with him on the island from the drone footage and stuff. And so
that wasn't your drone that you. Okay.
No. We just rented a speedboat.
Where he's just kind of like looking up at it like that.
Yeah, exactly. Next to the golf cart.
Right.
So I was like, oh my gosh, he's still alive. Well, turns out I guess he's in Israel or Lebanon or something now. But long and the short, I was like, this is interesting. And
this is during the investigation before they started coming after you.
This was like a week. So during the investigation, but I hadn't been arrested quite yet. Because what had happened was a hurricane hit the Bahamas, and I was filling up my airplane full of like clothing and shoes and all this stuff and flying loads of stuff to help with the hurricane.
Are you sure it was just clothes and food?
No, I was helping. I was helping the orphanages mainly because through our charity Man of Relief. We have an adopt an orphanage program. So anytime somebody buys our wellness products, we donate that same amount of product to an orphan fighting malnutrition.
Oh, wow. Right.
The goal being to link 2 million or 5 million consumers with 5 million children, because that's how many kids die every year to malnutrition. About 20,000 children every day die. So I'm trying to fix the world's biggest problem that way. And so anytime someone in the first world buys our product, we donate that same amount of product to these orphans. So I already have a network of orphanages around the world. And when the hurricane hit, I was like, oh. And we've linked up with another organization called 𝗀, which is a fabulous organization, global empowerment mission, and they're all over if you Google them. So I was doing this. I was meeting with prime ministers and of St. Kitts and Nevis and Antigua and St. Lucia and Barbados, and I was. Did
you say Antigua?
Antigua.
Do you by any chance know 𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗵𝗏?
Of course, 𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗵𝗏. Google 𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗵𝗏 St. Kitts. Chase, those guys flew in to my place in St. Kitts, and then they got a busted with all these weed plants. Look that
I know 𝗀𝗃𝗍𝗵𝗏 very well.
I flew on his jet. They stayed at my house. He brought his dog, and his dog was running around my neighborhood in Christoph Harbor.
The dog Satan was dog named Satan.
Yes, his Doberman was named Satan and whatever. Dude. Anyways, they all got arrested.
We already know two of the same people. Wow.
Yeah, with Mel too. Mel Carter.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm with Jeff Berwick and Luke, and I'm like, let's go raid Jeffrey Epstein's island, because we were right there in the Tortugas, and
How does that seem like a
good idea,
dude? How does that seem like a good idea?
It seemed like a good idea at the time because we were at Willie T's, and you're doing flips off the thing and having drinks and stuff. You're like, we're gonna raid Jeffrey Epstein's island and see if he's really alive or not. So we take the speedboat over there. You can go type up "We Are Change Epstein Island." There's like 2 million views on YouTube now. And so these guys jump off the thing, run around, filming. It's
you got off the speedboat and you went on the island.
On the island,
and you're running around the island.
Correct. Luke and Jeff didn't even wear shoes, so he's trying to run along barefooted on this gravel road.
Jeff Berwick and you
and Luke Rudkowski.
And you guys are all on the island running around just to try to find Jeffrey.
And my wife and daughter were in the boat sitting at the dock waiting. And I don't want to get on camera because I already knew what's going on. They put me in camera a couple of times at the end, but I was like, don't film me. Because I knew the investigation was going on. And like 5 days later, that's when they arrested me.
So hold on. There was no security on the island?
There was. That's the funny part. They're running around the island,
chasing you?
going in all the buildings, and then the security comes out. I'm like, Mayday, Mayday. I'm calling Luke and Jeff, run. So they're running down the beach. They jump in the speedboat and we go away. I was glad they didn't get shot.
Did they try to shoot at you or anything, or they just radioed?
No, it was just a lady on a golf cart, but she had a radio and she was radioing, because we had you weren't supposed to leave England because it's the U.S. Virgin Islands versus the British Virgin Islands. There was a whole bunch. I was told that there were a bunch of laws we broke, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. So then shortly after that, you're at the Tony Robbins seminar, and that's going to come and get you.
Yeah. So I figured, okay. Yes. So I don't know if it's a direct correlation, but I just know that they weren't that happy because I was speaking a lot at the conferences. I was sounding a lot like Ron Paul, calling Social Security a big Ponzi scam, and taxation is theft, and the Fed, stuff like that. And so at the time, the banking cartel didn't like that.
No,
and they did not like crypto. They were coming after it pretty hard. I mean, they gave that guy Ross a double life sentence plus 40 years for building a website. I mean, talk about coming out. That poor guy had to sit in jail for 10 years. Thank God Trump pardoned him. Can you imagine getting a double life sentence for building a website?
That's insane. That's insanity.
So I used to run fundraisers for Ross and his mom, Lynn, to pay for his legal bills at we'd throw parties and raise money. And so I think that could have been one of the other reasons is why I was one of the financiers for a lot of these campaigns. And, if they can't get Satoshi, they get the next rung down. What's that? The miners. Who was the biggest miners? BitClub. Who was the face of BitClub? I was lecturing about Bitcoin. I didn't own BitClub. I didn't run BitClub. I just was a vendor selling them equipment. I didn't join BitClub until 16 months after it actually had been off the ground running. But they hit like $1 billion in sales faster than any company on earth, faster than Amazon, Google, and you name the company. They literally the government says they brought in $700 million. It was a $722 million Ponzi scam. They said there was no money.
Yeah, because they're saying here that you were accused of misleading investors, falsifying returns, profiting from a deceptive mining operation.
That's the claims that they said for BitClub, not me. I was just bundled into this conspiracy, which I shouldn't have even been in. But think about this. If you're a gas station pump guy and a van comes up and you say, do you want me to give you 85 unleaded or 87? And they say 87. And you're like, great. You fill up their van with gas and off they go. Then an hour later, the police come and arrest you and say, hey, you're an accessory to a crime. How? What crime? Well, that van over there, those guys took your gasoline, put it in the van, and went and robbed a bank. And because you were the one that sold them gasoline, now you're arrested too. That wouldn't make any sense.
Right. That's kind of what they're doing here.
That's exactly what they're doing to me. They just didn't like me because, I think this is all political. That's why I call it lawfare, because who goes 5 years without having a trial? If they actually had evidence to...
Do you have a trial set up or anything?
No, they keep pushing out. The trial's going to be in March. Then it's going to be in February. Then it's going to be in September. Then it's going to be next August. Then
and so as far as you know, you could be living the rest of your life at your mom's house.
That's why I got so fed up because, after getting robbed by my lawyers for $3+ million and they do absolutely nothing. My lawyers came to me while I was sitting there and they said, listen, your daughter is, 2 years old. She's learning to walk and talk without you. They gave me all these things. The government will hold you here for the next 5 years without a trial and not give you bail because it's a complex case and they have all the guns and they're the government. So if you insist 2 + 2 is 4, you're going to be sitting here in jail for the next 5 years. But if you admit that 2 + 2 is 5, they'll let you go tomorrow. I'm like, 2 + 2 is 5? Yeah, just admit that you assassinated Abraham Lincoln and they'll let you go tomorrow. I'm like, okay, but if I say I assassinated, I wasn't even born till like 130 years after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. No, just say it. And then you'll get out and it will be fine. And I'm like, wow, but that's not true. And so I did a plea deal where I admitted 2 + 2 is 5 so I could get back to my family who needed me. My poor wife couldn't even.
But now they just may hold you here like this, right?
So now I'm quote unquote awaiting sentencing, right? Well, after 5 years of this awaiting sentencing, because they have to do a trial, convict, and then get sentenced, because one of my co-defendants, Matt, has not taken a plea deal. So now that I'm out, I reversed the plea deal. I did what's called a rescission of my autograph. And so now I want to go to trial with Matt, or just case dismissed. They obviously don't have anything to convict, because if they did, they would have done a trial a long, long ago. Any jury, if you show the jury, look, the $700 million they say came in, it was just Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out. We didn't touch the U.S. financial system. We didn't use money. We weren't selling securities or anything. But the $700 million comes in. If you take $700 million in and you pay 92,000 Bitcoin out, $5 billion back, who are the victims? Who's the injured party? Who has standing to sue? Who has any kind of standing to bring a claim? Nobody. There's no victims. How do you pay restitution? How do you bring me an injured party? Let me face my accuser. And, it's just a bunch of bollocks. I wish, that Trump would come in and put an end to this.
But a lot of influential people. I mean, obviously. So how are they trying to help you at all? Is anyone trying to come to your aid here?
Well, I mean, I only recently, on January 20th, the day Trump got in, I'm like, thank God. So I came out with my counterclaim, $22.2 billion lawsuit against them. I'm suing everybody. I'm sure someone at the Justice.
And it's a default judgment, correct?
So I gave them 30 days. So it's an equity. So you know how the credit card companies do it, 30 days, 15 days, right to cure, default, and then they go to lien. So instead of like suing and like having a class action lawsuit, since they brought the claim, it's a conditional acceptance. I do a counterclaim back. They have to prove an answer. If they can't, default judgment. So I gave them 30 days. They're right now in default with a right to cure. And so I dropped a bunch of stuff on the docket.
So hold on. So
I mean, if they were smart, they just do case dismiss.
You got the default judgment. What now? I mean, you're not getting a response still?
No. Well, the government has to reply by. So the judge stepped in. The government has till April 8th to reply. Then there's going to be a hearing on May 8th. Meanwhile, they've tried to throw me in jail 4 times for bail violations because they can't like legitimately convict me of a crime to throw me in jail. So like one time I was coming back from the airport and I was going to be home an hour early and my dad wanted to take me for a steak. So we stopped at the Outback Steakhouse. We have a steak and I get home an hour early. They literally tried to revoke my bail and throw me in jail for having a steak. These guys are crazy. They do not like.
If they
for some reason
to throw you in jail, how long can they throw you in jail for?
Oh, they're threatening 20 years. I'm like, for what? Who did I harm? Like, where are the victims? Like, what laws? I didn't break any laws that I'm even subject to. It's like they want me to say that a computer equipment is a security. I'm like, if what I did was a security, then you go after Amazon and Google and everybody, Dropbox and everybody else that has. Data centers.
Right. So where are you at?
It's a computer. We weren't selling stock. We weren't selling securities. It's just ridiculous. And now, they just back then they just didn't have any laws whatsoever.
So now you're looking to go public with all this and get out on podcasts, right? That's what your aim is now. That's how you're firing back.
That's what I'm firing back. Yeah, and so that's why I put up 𝗀𝗶𝗱.com. I got the movie deal guys. That want to put this all over the world. You're my first podcast, bro.
I popped your cherry.
So I had dinner with Tucker Carlson, and he's like, if half the stuff you're saying is true, then I'll get you on my show too. And Mike Tyson said that he put me on his podcast, and I don't have it. Not touching Joe Rogan, but that would be fun to be on Joe Rogan's podcast. I mean, I'd love to get the story out. Have people just learn about.
You've had dinner with Tucker, and he said he's going to bring you on, but he hasn't brought you on yet. Obviously, he hasn't brought you on yet.
He hasn't brought me on yet, but I haven't been ready. Literally, I only just started this because, I'm just fed up, and Trump is in, and David Sachs, and they like crypto now. They say that they want to build big data centers, drill, baby, drill. I mean, I've been approached by some of the biggest, wealthiest data center AI guys with billions of dollars that want me to come in and build them big data centers.
Would be a huge asset.
I would hire 10,000 people. I already built the biggest Bitcoin data center in the world. Back at the time, it was 75 megawatts.
You're like that guy. What's it? And Leonardo DiCaprio played him with Tom Hanks is chasing him around.
Remember? Oh, the Catch Me If You Can guy.
Yeah, yes. You're like this is also part of that movie.
That's it. I like more. What was the one we just watched? The Gatsby one, the Great Gatsby one.
Great Gatsby. Yeah,
that was a good one.
I mean, it's all in one. This is all rolled in one. I just but what's this sovereign citizen influence thing here? What's this I'm reading about the sovereign citizen? That's how you're fighting back, correct?
No, there's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. That's an oxymoron. You can't be sovereign and a citizen. There's an interesting thing that I discovered.
But isn't it the framework for your claims? Is that how you're doing this?
Yes. The framework is that I'm a flesh-blood American, which if you're born in Colorado, California, or Florida, you're an American. If you're born in Guam, Samoa, Puerto Rico, or the Virgin Islands, or Washington, D.C., you're a U.S. citizen. And then what happens is Americans will then join and apply to become U.S. citizens.
So it says here you're stating you're a living man, not subject to the jurisdiction of corporate U.S. courts.
Correct.
Can you explain?
The laws that I supposedly broke are statutes. They're civil statutory codes that only apply to 8 U.S.C. 1401 U.S. citizens. So only U.S. citizens. It's kind of like, think about it like this. You got a sandbox called the NFL. It's the league. Right. The NFL has franchises like the Denver Broncos and the Patriots. The Denver Broncos franchise in the league, the NFL, has offices to fill, like the office of wide receiver or quarterback or running back, right, or the positions, if you will. John Elway, the human being, fills the office or the position of quarterback for the franchise, the Broncos, in this league, the NFL. Because he signed that contract and joined the league and plays for this franchise, all these NFL rules apply to him that don't apply to you and I playing football, flag football out at the park. Right. NFL rules don't apply to us. So that is a big thing that a lot of people aren't aware of, is when you join the league, now 250,000 pages of law apply to you now that don't apply to people that aren't in the league. So the trick is to operate as a human being and not as this legal fiction, they call it. And so I've got a kind of a 9-minute video that's up on the site that explains the differences, so the people can see that this entity, they call it a 𝗬𝗏 trust, is not actually them. It's an office that they fill. It's hard to, like, all civil statutory law, and I can get into the law because I read 30,000 pages of law while I've been sitting here trying to figure out what the heck happened. All civil statutory law requires your consent. And the way you give your consent is by where you choose to domicile yourself. So if you live in Colorado, weed's legal here. In California, you don't pay a California state income tax. You live in Colorado. Across the border in Kansas, weed is still illegal. If you don't want to pay taxes, you live in New Hampshire, there's no income tax or sales tax. But if you live across the state line in Massachusetts, you have to pay both. So civil statutory laws are dependent on where you voluntarily choose to domicile yourself.
Right.
So if you voluntarily sign up to join the military, now all these military laws apply to you and the tribunals and stuff. If you get a marriage license, now family courts apply to you. All that stuff. If you get a driver's license, now traffic courts. So you can't court-martial someone who never joined the military in the first place. And if I kidnapped you and said, we're court-martialing you, the first thing you would say is, wait a second. I never joined the military. You can't court-martial me. This is the wrong court. You don't have jurisdiction. So that's kind of what's happened as well, which I use a lot of that in my motion. So anybody that goes to jobyweeks.com, you can read exactly what I filed. And the government's going to have a difficult time answering a lot of these questions.
But can they just keep this on the back burner forever? Is what
I'm forcing this now. My lawyers wanted to just do it for years and years.
This would lead to my next question. You use the postal rule as the notice of default, correct?
Yeah. So when you serve someone at the post office, that's how you serve them. So not only did I serve them at the post office, I physically went to the courthouse and submitted it, and I also electronically submitted it. So 3 different ways. And the reason I did that was because I served them through the post office. The clerk wouldn't put it on the docket, which is illegal. So then I went down and physically got the stamp from the clerk and everything, gave it to them. The clerk wouldn't put it on the docket.
Wow.
So I had to fire the lawyers. It's just the longest, craziest story.
No, but this is fascinating to me, and I'm learning a lot here. That's why I'm asking you.
A lot of the stuff that I put in those motions would literally free humanity.
And that's why you're such a threat, and that's why they're keeping you. That's what now you're going public, so there's a big problem there. But I'm just saying, like,
I'm living right now all the Bible characters in one. I've gotten really close to God. I totally have faith and trust that He's got everything under control. Jesus is my best friend, But I started out with, well, my name is Job, right? Remember the oldest book of the Bible is Job.
Right.
And Job, and he was the perfect guy. God said he was like the best guy on the planet, right? And Satan's like, oh, let's have this thing.
Take everything away from him.
Killed him, killed his family, took all of his wealth and all that. Never cursed God. So my name is Joby or 𝗬𝗶𝗹𝗍. Job and Obadiah combined means Jobadiah. Job was a billionaire and Obadiah was a prophet. One day maybe I'll be a billionaire prophet. We'll see. the point is, that's happened to me. But then it's like Daniel and the Lions Den happened to me. And then Jonah and the Whale happened to me. And I got this shirt of many colors. Well, remember Joseph in the shirt of many colors? He got kidnapped, thrown down the well, ends up second in command in Egypt. And then you go through Paul, and Paul got bounced around from jail to jail to jail too. And then I had my betrayal moment and that's a long story too, but I had like a lot of people.
You had your trials and tribulations, no doubt, and you keep a great attitude, man.
I have forgiven everyone. I feel blessed to have had the experience. I just hope that people can benefit from what I've learned. There's a lot of things that I would not know had I not gone through this experience. And so I just have a lot of love for everyone, and it's all going to work out.
Let me ask you this. The default judging and multi-billion-dollar demand, where did you get the number for that? I mean, it says here the terms include an assertion of personal liability for billions of dollars in damages. How did
we were a multi-billion-dollar organization.
Right.
That was when Bitcoin was at $10,000. Bitcoin went to $100,000. Yeah. We had 1 million members. If all the million members had $100 in their account, that's $100 million. Now it's 10x at least. There's $1 billion right there. We were mining 50 Bitcoins every day, 350 Ethereum every day. It's been 1,800 days. Calculate that out. That's like 150,000 Bitcoins. What's 150,000? There's another 15 insanity there. I mean, they made a terrible mistake doing this. They should have gone after actual criminals that harm people. BitClub was paying all their members every single day up until the day we were kidnapped. Now, I had nothing to do with paying or running the website or anything. I was just a vendor. But, I'm trying to come a little bit to their defense because I was there. I saw the equipment. I have the invoices for the purchase of the equipment. You can log on and you can go to the blockchain. You can see their wallet. You can see that they were, in fact, mining Bitcoin. I mean, I would expect this kind of treatment if I took, let's say, $50 million, because one time they sent me $50 million for a bunch of equipment. I already had my own airplane. I already had my diplomatic passport, and now I got $50 million. If I was a thief, I could have taken that money and disappeared. Right. I didn't do that. I bought the equipment, built the data centers for them. They mine the crypto. I can understand. If I stole that money and tried to flee to a non-extradition country, I can understand. I should be in jail, but I didn't. I didn't harm anybody. If you actually read the indictment,
you remind me of like the slave that breaks free and comes back to tell the other slaves, there's freedom over there. Like, come on, Jordan. And that's why they want to shut you up.
Well, under the Biden administration, that's a very dangerous thing to do.
Right.
I'm hoping that this clean out of these bureaucrats and the deep state and all that stuff happens so that that people will come back to America. I know so many wealthy billionaire people that are off in Dubai and they're off in Monaco and they're off because America's, it's like what happened to Spain when the judges went bonkers in Spain and were stealing from all the wealthy and blah, blah, blah. If you look at history, this was a big thing. That's why the Netherlands became a powerhouse, because the Netherlands were free. Everybody, all the wealth went to the Netherlands and Spain collapsed, right? So it's just happening. You can't embrace a bunch of communism and expect the producers and the people that create jobs and all that stuff to stick around. So Trump's got it right on the dot. And he's bringing back the jobs. He's bringing back the capital. And all we got to do is end the Fed and eliminate the IRS. So we're back in business, baby.
Back in business, yeah. Do you think it's only a matter of time now before you get his attention and he helps you in some kind of way?
Well, can you send this video to him? I hope he watches it, or somebody in the Justice Department. I don't know. That's why I'm stuck on house arrest. I can't go anywhere. I did go a month ago because I fired my lawyers. I wanted to meet a new set of lawyers, so the judge gave me a hall pass because I can't have a computer or a phone or watch Netflix or go anywhere or do anything. Have friends over. I can't. Have a bank account. I can't use crypto.
On house arrest, you can't do any of this.
I can't do any of this. The only way I can leave my house is if I go see my lawyers. So I went and had a meeting with my lawyers at the Gaylord Hotel, which just happened to be CPAC. So I ended up at
Wow.
CPAC meeting these lawyers. I got to meet Steve Bannon and all these guys. So I'm hoping that my story gets out there and somebody wants to come to my rescue. But I think that with the motions and everything that I've filed, because I'm now pro se, I fired all the lawyers. I think that even if nobody comes to my rescue, God's here, and I think that I make very sound legal arguments for them to just case dismissed and have this go away. So it's been 5 years. 5 years is long enough. I have learned my lesson, and the lesson being, maybe I shouldn't go on stages around the world calling Social Security a big Ponzi scam, even though it is.
You were like, to me, it's like, yeah, you're just like a wild man, dude. Entrepreneur, just shooting from the hip. I mean, and I give you all the credit in the world, man. I'm rooting for you, dude. Like 100%. I'm behind you.
Well, thanks for giving me this voice. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just, man, and stay with me for a second. Folks, go to 𝗀𝗶𝗱𝗶𝗹.com. They can learn more there, correct?
Yep, they can watch. I got a little 20-minute video that specifically goes over the case. And yeah, and my movie trailer. You'll like that.
The movie trailer is on there as well.
Sean Stone, he's a good buddy of mine. He said that he clipped together the footage to make a 3-part docu-series. So he did all the presidents.
Who's this?
Sean Stone, Oliver Stone's son. Yeah, he's a great guy. I love that guy.
Yeah, but
he just finished the RFK one, and so now he's going to do mine.
Wow, I love Sean Stone, man. Yeah. Ask him about Benjamin Fulford.
Oh yeah, I know Ben Fulford too.
Yeah. Okay,
he's got some crazy stuff he talks about.
Yeah.
Half the stuff he says is true. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's on another level, man. Well, Joby, I appreciate you joining me, man. I won't take any more of your time. Stay with me just for 1 second. Thank you for joining. 𝗀𝗶𝗱𝗶𝗹.com, folks. 𝗀𝗶𝗱𝗶𝗹.com.